Hey everyone, I'm Dave Rubinstein, Editor-in-Chief of SD Times. I'd like to thank you for joining today's conversation on value stream management in 2021. Last year, we assembled an expert panel to talk about the value of value stream as the concept was still relatively new. So this year, we've put the band back together to take a look at where value stream stands today. Joining me are Lance Knight, he's COO at value stream solution provider ConnectALL. Chris Nowak, he's the Director of DevOps Adoption at HCL Software, which is a provider of DevOps and value stream tools. And also Eric Robertson, Vice President of Product Management at low-code provider Onit. How you guys doing?
Great.
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 How are you,
Yeah,
Dave?
glad to have you with us.
Back.
So before we dive in, I just want to let our attendees know that we're going to be recording today's session. It'll be available tomorrow on demand for playback for their heart's content. And secondly, that we'll be taking questions throughout the conversation. So at any point, just go to the questions tab on the control panel, type in your question, and we'll get to as many as we can. All right, so let's get started, fellas. Lance, let me kick it off with you. How would you say the industry did last year in value stream management in terms of getting people educated on the subject and perhaps uptake in the concept and using the tools for value stream management?
So actually, I think that from an education and awareness perspective, the industry did actually pretty well. You know, from another Forrester wave to being a Gartner market guide. I know I've done tons of webinars all year long. Chris one time called me a value stream rock star somewhere, being all over the place. He's picking on me. But the truth is, I think we did a lot of things to make everybody aware of the value of what you can do with a value stream management program. I think there's still a long way to go, and we'll talk about that during this webinar. But we really did get a lot done last year to educate everybody about value stream management and how to use it.
Great. All right, let's kind of throw it around a little bit. Chris, maybe you take this up. So there has been this uptake in education, whatever, but I know that, in conversations that we've had with people, they're kind of struggling with, where do you get started? The concepts sound great, but how do I even get started doing this kind of thing? So what do you tell them?
Yeah, I don't know, Dave. It's kind of like it's always been, right? It's always a little bit complex, and so you look for a place where you can analyze it well, or get your arms around the problem, and then start there. And start small, right? It's like all problems. Don't try to boil the ocean. Just start with something manageable. Make sure you actually understand what you're trying to solve. And when you talk about value stream, I think it does get a little bit complicated because value stream crosses all of the disciplines. And so you might, if you're a development team, you might say, I want to maybe focus here. And so get your arms around that. If you're an ops team, value stream is part of that too. You do the same thing. So, I don't think there's a single answer other than just a good approach to problem solving like people have always done, and just stay grounded.
Mm-hmm. Anybody want to add to that?
Yeah, I totally agree with Chris there. I think they're still struggling around integrating their tool chain together. Mm-hmm. And really, the biggest one that I heard from them is really kind of integrating their planning tools with other systems, right? And if you really don't have that linkage, then it's hard to be able to track that value and link it back to value and connect it back to value if you can basically integrate into the system, the core system, where that values actually start defining and formed. Mm-hmm. So I think that is one big barrier that I see right now. That I'm a little bit surprised that it's there, but it's I'm still hearing that from customers.
I got to agree with that. It's the DevOps tool chain that's doing pretty well and connected, but the whole sense of tying that to purpose and being outcome driven is still lacking. Hooking it up to OKRs or to your financial systems, right? And it's really interesting. When we were doing the prep call, Chris, I was very specific on one of the speaking slots I'm working on. That is value trumps flow.
Yeah.
In the lean decision making filter, value trumps flow. but we spent a lot of time on improving flow in our DevOps perspective, but not enough time making sure what we're doing is really valuable yet.
That's right.
And I think that's one of the things that I'm going to be talking about a lot this year on that particular topic. So it's interesting, right? I need to know, is what I'm doing going to get me the outcomes I want? Right? We still want to release all the time, right? Release quick, often small batches, higher quality in that method, and it makes a lot of sense. But if I'm not releasing things of value, now I'm just maintaining the world, right? So
it goes back to some gold rat principles too, right? It's like, am I doing the right thing at the right time? And also, should I even be doing it at all? Right? Flow for the purpose of flow means nothing unless you're delivering value. So.
Right. I'm hearing that they have clear visibility into what's being released, but it's hard to draw the connection to the value created because, like Lance mentioned, because the OKRs and the value pieces live in different systems.
Sorry, just to kind of pick on that a little bit more, but I think we have the center, right? We know how to do the center, we know how to do CI, CD, and we started doing this. And we got to the point where we're trying to figure out the edges and beyond the work item tracking, but into connecting to the business, like you guys are saying, right? What's the requirement? What's the planning? What's the business alignment, right? What's that? And then going the other way, right? Just because we released the code to prod, that's just the start of the journey. Are they even happy using it? Did we satisfy them? So all of that monitoring and, the happiness of the customer, I think that's kind of where we are. We're trying to figure out, well, we already know how to do the middle stuff. How do we get to the edges where it matters?
And did I need to do that?
Yeah.
Did I even need that capability? Did that even make sense to me? Did I put through? So one of the ones I get caught up on with is this whole sense of technical debt, right? Do I need to improve my technical debt? Maybe. If it's a security problem.
Yeah, especially if that impedes or impacts my ability to deliver new value to the customer.
But you're not. But my point is that you're not looking at technical debt in the right way, in the right lenses.
Exactly.
I agree.
So years ago, and I have a little story around that. Years ago, in 2000, if you all remember, there was this big thing, right? 2000, everybody needed new systems. And somebody came to me and said, "Do I need a new system for shop floor management?" And I was consulting at the time, and it was a green screen system, and it was full of technical debt, right? It was based on Fox Pro. Anybody old enough to know Fox Pro?
No idea what you're talking
Visual
about.
Fox Pro?
Visual Fox Pro, right?
Fox Pro.
And it wasn't going to be impacted by Y2K at all. And they're like, "Well, we need to do a whole new system." I'm like, "Why?" "Well, it's technical debt." It's still going to work the day after. It's going to work on January 1, 2020. I mean, 2001.
Right.
And it's going to work just as fine. And anything I can create. So it didn't make any sense. It brought no new value to the organization to change that.
It's always a risk profile, right? What's the value and what's the risk? It's funny. I was actually talking to somebody on my team before this call, and we were talking about like what kinds of testing matter more. And we kept going back to performance and security. It's kind of the same thing, right? If you screw up your performance or your security, it's a big problem. If you screw up a web UI, it's not that bad, right? It's how big is the blast radius? And I think the same thing applies here, right?
Exactly. And that's why having that insight to be able to understand that customer experience and to understand and be able to manage and defend what was released is critical as far as getting that feedback into that strategy planning session, so I could be able to understand during my planning session, to your point, Chris, what are the risks and security and other factors that need to take into account during this.
I call it the
variability
of value.
Yeah.
Right. The variability of value. Value is what.
Yes.
How you project it, what you say it is. So sorry, Dave, I cut you off, and you were going to take us down another tangent.
Well, no problem. I was just going to say we're talking about value on a higher level, and I know we were talking in a pre-call about people not being able to show the people they report to the ROI of value stream?
Mhm.
Like, how do you
Mhm.
quantify we're more efficient? How does that go right to your bottom line? You know what I mean? So what are the conversations that are being had to kind of help overcome that barrier?
Well, it's an interesting word too, efficient, right? I'm more efficient at delivering code. I'm more efficient in my DevOps pipeline. But does greater efficiency help me get my outcome
Right.
and drive value?
Right.
I have this discussion with people in sales too. Well,
Mhm.
I'm very efficient the way I get these emails out, and I get it done and I'm done. And I'm like, but does that efficiency that you put together help you achieve your outcome?
Mhm.
So it's a
Mhm.
really, that word efficiency is very interesting to me when I hear it of I could be the most efficient at doing something, but that doesn't mean I'm delivering value or getting my outcome.
Yeah, efficiency is one of those words that scare me without context, right?
Right.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've been looking at is how do we calculate or try to measure or capture that value, right?
Mm.
And one of the metrics that, or I guess frameworks that we're utilizing, and I've seen others using. I'd love to get you guys' opinion of it. Is cost of delay. So I know if you guys, yeah, I'm sure you guys are familiar with that, and
Yeah.
it's interesting because what it does is try to put multiple dimensions on value, right? Kind of like what we're talking about, right? Not just
Mhm.
kind of business value, but it takes into account maybe does this help with churn? Does it take into account of the technical debt? Does it take into account of risk and other factors? So I'm curious to get you guys' opinion on what you've seen out there with your customer base.
Mm.
Well, wait state, Chris, I remember going through a whole thing with you on wait states and wait times and cost of the wait state and delay.
Mhm.
And absolutely, that's a good metric on a higher level of, how long does it take me to get something to market, or how long does it take for me to wait for that? I mean, I think we all get hit with that one as I'm waiting for a new patch from engineering for our sales engineering team to get out to show customers this fancy new widget we have, right? And what's the cost of each day that doesn't come on and it doesn't happen, or some new capability that a
Mm-hmm.
customer is waiting for? What's the cost of that time and wait? I think we all get caught of that
Yeah.
in our software companies. And I think Chris would know better than I, but I also think at large financial institutions, insurance companies, there's a cost of waiting for that
Mm-hmm.
security patch.
Or anything, a credit card campaign, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I guess a couple things there, Eric. One of the things I think about cost of delay, I think it's probably the most underrated metric there is, right? And I'm not going to certainly
Mhm.
fight Don Reinertson on it, right? He said if you measure one thing, measure the cost of delay. And it's interesting because if you do that, it encompasses other things. So like you have a DORA metric of lead time, cycle time. Well,
Yep.
those are in a way they're sort of dimensionless, right? The minute
Mm-hmm.
when you say cost of delay, you've added the dollar sign to what does it mean to waste time? And that now you're talking business numbers, right? And so I
Yep.
think if we could
Exactly.
take it up and start to quantify beyond, well, who cares if the cycle, so what if it's slow or fast? Does it matter? I don't know. Well, what's the cost, right? Now we're talking. And
Yeah.
to your point, Lance, right? I used to tell the story all the time when I worked in the banks was if for whatever reason, they have a credit card campaign, a bank, right? And they want to beat the other bank on a credit card campaign or, any kind of consumer thing. There is a cost, right? The software is perishable on the shelf or the campaign is perishable. If we don't beat the other company out there, we've
Right.
just lost that first mover advantage for that campaign. The business is now behind, and maybe it was a transient market opportunity. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's a tangible cost to delay, but I think back to how you started the conversation, Dave and others is, well, have we ever really aligned it to what the business goals were? Right?
Right.
Are we pumping out software in a vacuum, or do we understand that if we don't do this in 3 months because we promised the business this, they just
Yep.
lost potential market op of who knows, right? $20 million.
Well, that
Exactly.
brings us all the way back to value trumps flow,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Uh, so it's an interesting thing. It really is, as we look at it being more efficient, but have maybe the thoughts of losing the value of what we're trying to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to do that, right? We get caught up in it and we're like, oh, this is cool. We're going to do this. But, pick your head up once in a while and say, we're moving fast, but is it the right direction?
Yeah,
Right.
if it doesn't map back to the business and their needs and outcomes that you're trying to drive to, it doesn't matter.
That's right.
So I'm going to jump in here. We have a question from one of our attendees named Steve, who wants to know what is working to shift mindsets towards value stream thinking. Let any of you jump in first.
I wish we knew.
Hmm.
You know, I'll start, I guess. I don't think it's any one thing. Every business has a little bit of a different need, right? So it's really, in some ways, Steve, it's kind of just a conversation with the customer to understand, again, what is their business need? And then from there, maybe you can start to have the conversation about, well, where do we look at in the value stream to help you achieve that goal? It's kind of consultative to start. At least that's my thought.
For me, at the company and what I've been dealing with some customers, and I think Lance mentioned this, is the OKR. I think that notion of the objectives and being able to not only define these objectives, but make sure you're able to measure those objectives based upon key results is quickly becoming a way to, I'm able to roll that out not only at the team levels, but now I'm starting to see how I can start rolling this out at the organizational levels as well.
Right.
And that is one way I'm able to start connecting everybody, herding the cats, as they say, toward what is the outcome that we're all trying to achieve and driving to. And when you do that, then the notion of introducing the value and value streams becomes a little easier. In fact, that's how I introduced it at my company, is I just start off saying value streams. I kind of really started off, to your point, Chris, around what is it I'm trying to achieve here? What is the company trying to achieve? Where do they want to go? And how do we get there, right? What are the necessary activities, processes, initiatives that we need to all align to in order to achieve those objectives and goals?
I'm going to take this in a little bit of a different angle, and I think one of the ways is awareness of the thought of using value stream thinking, right? And value stream. So the awareness isn't there yet. There hasn't been any like, I can go get trained here and do value stream thinking and the awareness of what that can do for my organization. You know, there's very few consulting companies that do value stream stuff, except for Steve's. And next time you can join us if you want. But really, it's that getting the awareness out there of what it can do for your organizations. I think really having sessions like this where people are paying attention, educating the market in the field on it, getting our articles out there about how to think about it in a value stream and doing it. Most speaking slots I do about lean and systems thinking and value stream stuff. So I think it's our work to try to boost that up that we're doing to make that happen. There's no like one central thing. Like the Agile manifesto came out and then everybody was doing Agile or had Agile thinking. We're still immature in the market where people don't totally get that. So I think having the wave come out, having all those other things happen, I think is really building a momentum on this. And I think it'll help all of us as we're trying to help organizations develop software quicker, better, faster. That's where I think value stream management over the last year has failed. We have really still, and Chris and I have talks about this, and I've talked to you about it, we have still really focused on how cool is my value stream management tool, right? I have an awesome, ConnectALL has a great value stream management solution. But if you don't know how to use it and you're not thinking in value streams, then you're just integrating stuff.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Right.
All right, so you started a manifesto right there. You have value trumps flow. You have mindset over tools. I'll book us a room in Utah. We can get together and write some stuff
There you
down.
go. Right. I think
So
I put this in one of your articles, Dave, recently. I got a shiny new Tesla in the driveway called, my value stream management product. I don't have a driver's license. What good does it do me?
Right.
Right.
Right. And I think that's where we didn't really take off last year with value stream management. And ConnectALL is dedicated to do a lot this year on that particular plane.
Right.
Yeah, I think part of it too is like we keep speaking of value stream in the singular. And what I saw early last year was, like, well, what's my value stream? I go, you don't have a value stream. You have many value streams, right? You have development value streams, operational value streams, and there's only one, in my opinion at least, there's only one place there's one value stream, right? And that's at the bottom of the balance sheet at the CFO or CEO level. Other than that, everybody has a value stream, and then you have to worry about coordinating, what does that mean to deliver? And so once you get people out of that mindset, they're like, oh, right, okay, here's my UX stuff. It needs to feed into this, and just kind of break that up, which I guess goes back to the other part of my point would be people, just like in DevOps, value stream, they're still thinking organizationally. Well, I'm over here, I'm dev, and I'm ops, and I'm security. Well, we had that problem with DevOps. Now we've got it worse with value stream because value stream is a little bit wider than DevOps. But organizationally, people are forced by the organization to keep thinking in their silos. So, we're overcoming that now. It's just a little bit harder, but I do think people are more open to understanding. If they don't start working together, it gets ugly fast.
Yeah, agreed. It definitely, to both of you guys' point, it seems like you have the ones that are looking at it from the tool chain and kind of integrating that tool chain together. And then you have the other side, which Lance, you were kind of describing as well, but it's still a disconnect between the two. And in the end, it's all rallying, everybody needs to rally around the outcome, right? The business outcome, right?
That's right.
And if that's not the fundamental driver, then it doesn't matter if I have one value stream or multiple value streams, I'm still going to end up with the same problem. Because if those value streams are in place, I'm measuring, if they are not connected to outcomes and we're all aligned to that, it doesn't matter. So technically I could be integrated organizationally with my people, we could be working together, communicating, but if we're not communicating to a common goal or outcome, this is outcome overall, it doesn't matter. They'll fall apart.
So Eric, I think that brings us to, maybe at least what I think value stream really is, right? It's really about organizational leadership. It's about people rallying around it at the right level. So we all know every group is going to be incentivized differently, and that's okay, right? Everybody has a different priority. But at a certain organizational level, somebody has to set a priority and say, the visibility and priority. This is what we're doing as an organization. Here's how you line up. You will have some different priorities, but you all are at this priority for the organization.
Exactly.
So value stream to me is really, it's not for a development team. It's really for the leaders, the people that can influence across multiple organizational paths to help them work in the same direction with visibility.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Exactly.
So that's really cool. And then I think about there's value in visibility and being able to see. So, when I said value trumps flow, that's the lean thing. So value trumps flow, flow trumps remove and waste, right? So as you're looking at your value, you can determine how to increase flow based upon the value, what waste to remove based upon improving flow, right? So all this kind of boils up together and making sure that everybody is marching to the same type of thing. And there's multiple streams to achieve these outcomes. So it's a very interesting conversation we've got ourselves in here, Dave.
Yeah, absolutely. I know Chris was talking about visibility the other day when we were chatting, saying that without it, you don't know what direction to pivot to and what to actually take on and things like that. But we have a question from one of our attendees. His name is William, who is curious to know what are the different types of value and how are these measured? What kind of metrics are we looking at? So Chris, maybe you start off with that.
Yeah. So yeah, let me just set the stage a little bit. When I think about value stream, at least I think in 3 levels. There's a team level value stream, which is okay, right? But it is also a localized thing, and you have to be careful with that. Then you have across a couple of teams, and that's okay. You might be maybe, for example, a development manager who has a development team and the testing team. You have to make sure they're coordinating. And then there's the 3rd level, which is, I don't want to say it's an executive level, but it's now you're thinking organizationally, right? It could be a project manager, some kind of a transformation leader, maybe a transformation consultant. So there's those multiple levels. And I think you need to look at it, from that perspective when you think about where do you focus on what you're doing? And so the visibility itself will come from how do you create the visibility across all of those layers, again, so people can really understand how they're working. I don't know if that helps, but it's kind of how I think about the visibility and the layers.
So last year I did a webinar that described those exact tiers. And so value exists at each of those tiers. And bringing value is all about up and down that, right? So there's the business value, which is kind of like the portfolio tier. Am I bringing the right products to market? Is what we're working on relevant, right? And then there's development value in improving flow and being more efficient and looking at that. And then of course that goes down to the let's say the operational tier of delivering things. But all of that really, this is a bold statement, is trumped by the portfolio value, by the business outcome value. Right? It all has to kind of boil together as well. And those, what we've kind of figured out on this value metrics thing is value is different at each organization. The metrics you look at value is different. Some industries, it may be more valuable to be ultra secure, and that is the value they want. Other industries, it might be more valuable to have a great user experience and adoption. So you have to look at your organization to really define those value metrics that are important to you. Some organizations, it may be more important to be cost reductive. Some organizations, the value is getting more things out there to grow your business. It's a moving target, the value, and your leadership team needs to define those things.
Right. If I boil it down into three things for you, though, I would say it's risk, value, and risk, revenue, cost, right? But maybe not really revenue. Revenue is a value. It's what you provide. Like if you're a nonprofit, you're not out there for money. You're out there for your community, whatever you happen to choose. But you're either managing risk, managing cost, or managing the value that you deliver from what you do. And it's like Lance said and Eric, right? It's going to be different for everybody. But as I roll up that value stream, I think, what of those things am I satisfying, or which of those am I satisfying?
Revenue is a outcome. Revenue is a output. It's a goal. It's a little different than.
Yeah. All right, we could rephrase it, right? Lose money, make money, or manage your risk, right? But
right, keep people employed or not, right? I don't know.
Yeah, right. But I mean, it's those concepts.
Yeah, revenue is very important. Don't get me wrong, and I hear from the board all the time about revenue. So don't.
That's why I throw in the nonprofit, right? It isn't necessarily about revenue, but it's about the value you deliver to your community.
Yeah, it's about the outcome that it's about the outcome that you're looking at and delivering. And again, I think what I've seen is OKRs has been one of those approaches that's been pretty successful for what we're doing.
By the way,
that's why we did that OKR thing.
You want to talk a little bit about that, Lance? I think give a little context.
The OKR.
Yeah.
Tying.
I think that's a challenge for people. How is that related with kind of the technical aspects? Because as Chris described, kind of those layers, right? And you did.
Right.
How does that kind of connect it together? And I think uniquely what you did with the OKRs there.
Why don't you explain what OKR means, right? Because I didn't know about it until a couple of years ago, and we just used OKR 5 times, right? So
yeah. So Lance, you want to, or
I could take it on really at a high level. So it's outcomes, key objectives, and results. So from a technical perspective, I'm defining an outcome. That outcome, to achieve it, needs certain capabilities. That could be human capabilities, and there's been talk around this with capability metrics. That could be all these things. So let's boil it down of I want to create a whole new business in this market, and I want this much revenue and so on. What are the key results and things I want to track, and what do I have to do? So in order to do that, that boils down into software delivery, into your portfolio and so on. So to achieve this outcome, I need all these capabilities. And those then boil up to outcomes, key objectives and measured results. So as I'm moving forward, what am I getting the results back?
Mhm.
So
From the IT level, though, let me just ask you
great
this.
putting me on the spot for that, Eric, though.
Oh, no, you did fantastic there. The only thing I would add on there is typically at a higher level, I think strategic intent, and there's a great, folks can Google it, it's a Harvard Business Review article around it, and they really talk about why that's critical and important. But essentially, it answers the question, what does the organization strive or stand for, right? Where is it that they're trying to go? And it encompasses vision, mission, your business models, and your goals and objectives, which is where I think the OKRs and your definitions start coming into play there. And
Right.
I think that is a very critical strategic management process that when introduced at that level, it really starts, at least when it was introduced at companies that I've been at, it really starts, and it goes back to Chris's point, it starts having at that executive level to start really thinking about what do they need to do as far as being able to achieve as a company, as an organization, and start rallying around the company and the other parts of the organization around that.
Okay. So we just
I
went
have
through
the last question. I have the last question here on metrics, and then we'll move on to another topic. But just looking at it from the IT level, you know, they talk about things like the DORA metrics and wait times and MTTR and all of these types of things. Are those the only metrics that people who are actually building the product to get out the door need to be looking at, or are those the key ones that they should be keeping in mind?
You know, Doric metrics are tried and true, and they've got what 22,000 data points or more behind them, 6,000 companies. You know, I think they're in some ways they're kind of the gold standard of what you should look at. And if you only had to pick 3 or 4 out of the box, I would say look at those first. But it kind of goes back to context too. You know, sometimes they're at a much higher level than what you need to do some diagnosis. That's okay. That's how they designed it. You know, I've had conversations with DORA folks. They had to look at, you know, certain ways of why they're doing some of that. So they are some high levels. But if you need to dig into something, you might need a little bit more. Like if you have a very big security focus, you're going to do more than just the top level DORAs. But, you know, don't ignore them. I would say they're very, very important. That's where you start, would be my opinion.
Great. Okay. So moving on to another topic, obviously COVID is on everybody's mind and people have been working from home, and there's been a lot of upheaval in organizations just trying to get people the equipment that they need, and then the collaboration tools and getting all that infrastructure kind of set up. So a question that I have is, now the time for organizations to be looking at implementing something new like value stream management while they're still just trying to get their footing in kind of this new remote work environment? Or is it actually the best time to be doing something like that? So I just want to hear where you guys kind of stand on that.
So I stand it's the best time, because right now you need to be more purpose driven. I need to be delivering value in all kinds of different ways. Do I need to be more efficient at its way I'm doing that? Maybe not. But I really need to make sure that I'm delivering the most value at the least cost I can to the market of what I'm doing. And I need to remove waste. I need to improve flow. I need to make sure of all this, everything that value stream is really about outside of the tools, we need to look at and do. Because as your organizations aren't generating as much revenue for whatever reason, or aren't getting as much customers, you have to become more efficient, more scrappy, more intent. Like this year, my initiative for ConnectALL is to be intentful to the things that we do, not just doing it, but have intention of what it is and the outcome I want from doing that. And value stream thinking helps you think in that certain way, or the way that you're doing things. So now there's no better time or more important time to do and use value stream ideologies than now.
Yeah, I would concur there. If you really think about it, what COVID did was it was a disruption to the business models, right? So even if I'm a company and let's say I'm in the healthcare vertical and I optimize my business operating model where the doctor sees you in the office and captures that information intake and processes that with the insurance company. And it's optimized, it's efficient, but guess what? I'm not going into the doctor office. He's seeing me remotely. That business model is now changed.
Mm-hmm.
I have to adapt that. And how do I adapt that? Because they adopted it basically on a model, and they looked at it and they were probably measuring all the technical results, right? How quickly did they get paid and processed? But now there's other question, which is what is really what I'm trying to drive to? What is my business objective around this?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
You know,
And now companies are realizing, hey, I need to be adaptable in my operating models that's around the value that is being delivered, independent of how it's actually being done.
So
yeah,
I was
I was just going to say that, you know, for years we've been writing about digital transformation, and a lot of people have been saying, you know, if you can't keep up, you're going to die, and it all
Right.
sounded very hyperbolic to me. That, you know, nobody's really going to die. Come on, let's be real. But yet, COVID, I think, has really exposed this in that you see so many little mom and pop market stores and card stores and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
These are the ones that you're seeing getting boarded up because they weren't able to either have a website that could handle transactions or a way to deliver their product to my front door, things like that. So I think this has really shined a light on the industry in terms of, you know, hey, we weren't kidding around when we said you really need to be moving in this direction. This is the future of business, basically.
Exactly.
So the interesting thing is, I hear you talking about that, Dave. It's I got to make this statement to all of us, and I've talked to all of you through the years, you know, through the last year and so on. We are the blessed ones. We're not impacted as bad as that local restaurant that had to shut down, right? I worked from home anyway. My life has not been that changed, so we have to acknowledge that in this COVID time, we are the blessed ones, and we need to help those that aren't, but that's another webinar maybe. But the point is we're the blessed ones, right? So how did the local restaurants change? They had to, right? They had to open up their delivery service if they didn't, right? We didn't have these issues here, the four of us. So I'd like to acknowledge that we're the blessed ones. Right?
Interesting.
The worst thing for Dave was he couldn't get his hair cut as much as he wanted to.
I'd like
Still a problem, I might add. Eric's clearly not having that same problem, but
So
we got the same, Barbara.
So it just accentuates the fact that value stream is really important right now to help all organizations be more efficient, like Eric was saying.
Exactly.
absolutely. All right, so let me throw this out there, you know, to you guys as we've been kind of moving along here. So where does value stream management go this year? I know last year the emphasis was on a lot of education and things of that nature. What do we need to see in 2021 and even beyond of where we need to focus now?
Wow, I'll start off with this because I want to definitely put this question to Chris and to the rest of the group here. Is especially Lance because he has, you know, pretty much a tool set platform. But I think the question I'm hearing now is platform versus integrated tool chain. Is it do I look for a platform that kind of encompasses the strategy, planning, coding, and downstream these control points, or do I have kind of a best of breed, and then I'm able to have full rapidly build out well integrated pipelines? Do I start looking at cloud service providers that are building out their own offerings and just go ahead and swap over? Which of these emerging control points that are increasingly critical for customers looking to build out a cohesive solution? So I'm curious from Chris's and Lance's viewpoint on that.
Well, I think, as I look back over what I've seen for 15 or 20 years, it shifts, right? And it started out with, early in the DevOps days, you kind of had a platform or a couple of tools, so it looked like a platform. And then from there, you started to get into some real platforms like, you get the PaaS stuff and all of that came in. And then, with the advent of open source, everything kind of decentralized, and every organization has 300 tools, 5 of which do the same thing at any given time. What I am, it seems like not everybody, but what it does seem is people are starting to ask that question, Eric. It's like, I don't necessarily want this like a platform, without naming any platform company names, but what I'm looking for is something that works better together. So maybe a couple of best of breed things that are almost like a platform. I think folks are starting to go that way. But to go back to answer the question, a consultant's answer, it's always going to depend on what that company is doing, because people are behaving around the tools they have. They've made investments, whether they've developed it themselves or they've just learned and bought things or open sourced. So there are investments there. There's always a cost to migrating, even if the tool is free, right? And so it's always a question of where I want to go is whatever I do, whether that's a platform or individual tools, is it going to make me significantly better than where I am today? Kind of goes back to the risk conversation, right? Or the cost. Is it worth doing it even if there's a little tax that I pay today? So I don't know that there's a specific answer other than, you should really be very, as an organization, look at what you're doing today. What's the cost? Is it okay to live with, or do you really need to do something different? Which ties back into the prior conversation about, do you want to start disrupting yourself before somebody else does it to you?
Right.
So I'm going to answer this the way I think you're going to agree to, Eric, because we've talked about something similar like this in the past. I think so, and Gartner defined this stuff for us to help us out a little bit, right? There's value stream management solutions, and then there's value stream management platforms. The platforms are about connecting the tool chains and doing all that stuff, which that's ConnectALL, right? And managing flow through all of that. And then you've got the solutions. The solutions are one where everything kind of happens within that one tool set. Now, I believe any value stream management solution has to have a value stream management platform in it because there's been a tooling explosion, right? And you just came from a company that had a value stream management solution, and it had a platform that it also offered.
Yep.
So I think that's really kind of the answer. You're going to need both, right? You still need the stuff to do your iterations, your planning, your task management, all of that. That's happening in all kinds of tools. But one tool has to be the center, and you need a platform to make all that work together to get to make sure that you're delivering value.
Yeah, I 100% agree with it. Right, you're organizing the chaos that's been, sort of the tool spread that you've acquired.
Yep.
Now, my future prediction for value stream management this year is I still live on this. Value stream management is human. Tools let the humans connect things and be more efficient. We really need to get to educating, helping people understand how to do systems thinking, how to do, like Steve said earlier, how to have a value stream mindset, how to think about it in that way of, the flow of value and all of that. So I think this year really has to educate the humans and people on how to have that. So last year we had this one question on this call: where do I get started? And I reflected on that before we did this one, and I did not have a good answer for that last year.
Yeah,
that's where we need to go, is helping people there.
It's interesting. If you look at the phrase or term value stream management, I think value stream management has really been more about stream management.
Yeah.
To be perfectly honest. And I think now it needs to really focus on that value piece. That's it. That
value stream, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to be saying value trumps flow all year long. And next year I'll come up with another one. But anyway.
Yeah, good. All right. Well, that seems to be a great point to wrap up on. So let me thank you guys again for rejoining us this year to look at value stream, and hopefully we'll do it again next year and see what the year actually brought. So
as a sponsor, we will.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So I want to thank Lance Knight from ConnectALL, Eric Robertson of Onit, Chris Nowak from HCL Software. And as always, I'm Dave Rubinstein, Editor-in-Chief of SD Times. Until we do it again, so long, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, fellas.
Thank you.